You're listening to Inside Content, the TV industry podcast. This show is brought to you by 3Vision, a global TV industry consultancy specialising in content acquisition, strategy, research and business development. Each episode, we give you VIP access to the views and experiences of senior TV executives and discuss the latest TV industry trends and insights.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Nickell, the COO of 3Vision, and on this episode of Inside Content, I'm joined by Arran Tindall, Chief Commercial Officer for EMEA and Key Markets at BBC Studios. We discuss BBC Studios' strategic approach to linear TV, fast channels, content licensing, and digital products. I hope you enjoy. So I'm joined here today on Inside Content by Arran Tindall. He is BBC Studios' Chief Commercial Officer for EMEA and Key Markets. Morning, Arran.
Hi, Jonathan.
Maybe we could start just explaining, what your role is at BBC Studios.
Yeah, sure. As you said, I'm Commercial Officer for EMEA Key Markets. What this means is overseeing channels and streaming, BBC branded products, increasingly on fast, content sales, essentially looking to maximize value on all our routes to market for those BBC branded products and content sales. And the key markets element is markets where we have significant channel businesses in addition to content sales business. Prior to BBC Studios, I spent 20 years at Paramount Global, formerly Viacom CBS, leading international distribution for channels, products, and content sales.
Great, perfect, thank you. So, your current role includes looking after the traditional pay TV linear business for BBC Studios. There's been a lot said about the decline of linear TV, but for the BBC, it still seems to be an important part of what you offer. Can you tell us a bit more about that and the linear strategy for BBC Studios?
Yeah, sure. I think the headline is BBC branded channels are a core part of our business today, and as we look ahead in the years to come, linear TV is still a major way that audiences choose to consume content, especially in the markets that I cover, where linear TV has proved somewhat resilient and in some cases is still growing. We of course look at the markets and recognise that there are market shifts in recent times driven by technology, new consumer offerings, which is why we've evolved our strategy to match those market developments. So we're not just sitting looking at the linear space. We have three ways of looking at the market. We look at our core business, which is channels and content sales. We look at developing a new business, investing for market changes, things like BBC Player, which we can talk more about, and then the sort of growth initiatives on top of that, which is strategic opportunities to enhance our core business and new business. So an example of that would be moving into the fast space. Just returning to our core channels business, we've had branded services in many markets for 20 years or more. We've expanded our channel portfolio through those last 2 decades, but more recently, we've been quite deliberate in how we've managed the channel portfolio as the markets change. What that means is we've taken proactive steps in each of our channel markets across the last 18 months. Things like looking at how we can drive the maximum on-screen performance by taking proactive steps on programming and marketing decisions to optimize overall channel value. What that also means is that we have put our best efforts where we see the greatest opportunities to drive that performance. And that means being very granular at a program and schedule level to make sure that every piece of content is performing in the maximum possible way on every channel. Also, just to continue looking at the growth potential, some of our markets have growth potential, so we've been very deliberate in terms of how we've looked to grow share. Couple of examples here, looking across the markets I cover. Benelux, BBC First has grown significantly to reach over a 2% share and is currently the 10th most watched channel in Netherlands. Moving to South Africa.
Wow, that's an impressive stat.
It is 2% and even as high as 2.5% earlier this year. And against all channels in the market, that is a big channel.
So you look very closely, very granular detail at scheduling, programming. In Benelux, is there a sort of flavour of content that works better than others?
Definitely. Benelux is an example where we have a smaller portfolio and a very targeted portfolio. So our channel, BBC First, is a scripted drama channel. Light crime, soft crime does particularly well there. So our Benelux business is predominantly built around that single channel, which is different to some other markets which have 4 or 5 channels in the portfolio and are genre based. So BBC Earth, BBC Brit, BBC Lifestyle are some of our other brands. But in Benelux, we have a single focus on the drama space.
And so the Nordics, is that where you have more brands present?
Nordics is an example again of where we've got a smaller portfolio. Just earlier this year, we moved from 2 channels to 1 channel. So we had BBC Brit and BBC Earth in that market for a number of years, but given the market dynamics, we took the decision to consolidate into one aggregate service launched as BBC Nordic, and also took the opportunity to launch BBC Nordic Plus, a companion on-demand service. So Nordics is in that smaller portfolio category.
Right, and so BBC Nordic Plus it's a companion service. It's not a standalone subscription service.
Correct. It's not direct to consumer. The market in Nordics is very highly penetrated. Yeah, so having relationships with the affiliates reach large parts of the market. The Nordic market is quite developed in video on demand, and so we saw the gap in our portfolio there of having not having an on-demand product in the market, and there's a strong tie by having BBC Nordic and Nordic Plus. So at a brand level, there's a very clear link between those two services. But you're right, it's done on a companion and a bundled way as opposed to separate standalone.
And how's that service going? Is it fulfilling the purpose for which you launched it?
It is. I mean, we're happy with it. It puts us into that future-facing market outlook by having a substantial VOD product into the market. We negotiated or renegotiated all of our carriage agreements with all of the affiliates across Nordics, and we were successful in repositioning Nordic and Nordic Plus with the entire market. That launched earlier this year, and the feedback from the affiliates is that they're very positive on both the services. We're still in the first year of operation, so we had the first 12 months to see how the service is performing, and we'll respond to that as we get sort of into next year and we get sort of full year's performance data back.
Yeah, and what sort of what level of content's on it? What volume is there?
I mean, we had two separate channels in BBC Brit and BBC Earth, so both were fully programmed. So what we did was we took the best of BBC Brit and the best of BBC Earth, then introduced new genres as well. So we brought in more on the entertainment space, more on the lifestyle space, more on the factual entertainment space. So we added genres in there. So from a volume perspective, it's a fully programmed service. And what we did was we expanded the genres to give a broader breadth of content on the schedule.
Right, and that sounds like it's been successful for you. Do you think it might be a model that you follow in other markets? It seems like a sort of a sort of supporting step for the linear pay business. And as I said, if it's successful in the Nordics, perhaps it might be successful elsewhere. Are you potentially looking at other markets where you could follow suit?
We like having the strong brand association between Nordic and Nordic Plus. If you look at our other markets, you just referenced Benelux. That is another example of a market where we have one channel there already, as opposed to a 4 or 5 channel portfolio. So what I'd say is, in the other markets where we have the portfolios, examples being Central East Europe and Africa, then those markets are the markets that are being somewhat resilient on linear TV. So they probably exist with a full portfolio for some time yet. Benelux is the only other market where we have that sort of smaller portfolio or single channel. So we'll look to see how we need to evolve that market over time.
Good. Well, I mean, it sounds like your linear business is being somewhat more resilient than linear business for others. We've seen in EMEA especially a lot of talk over the last, probably 18 months, 2 years, about FAST. Everyone seems to talk about it, and I know BBC Studios are in that space. How do you see that fit into the sort of overall growth strategy?
It's increasingly interesting area for us. The headline is that it represents growth. It's complementary to our other lines of business, and we're in a strong position in terms of the catalogue and breadth of content that we can bring to that space. So we've been in the fast space in EMEA for 2 years. We're now, having been in that space, seeing where the space is heading, where our brands and channels have been performing. We've struck partnerships across most of EMEA. So fast for us is now an opportunity to build new audiences, further partnerships, and drive incremental value. Just to give you a sort of an overview of where we're at today, launched in France, Italy, Germany, Spain with Samsung and Pluto, adding Rakuten and Freeview soon after that. We've got 6 channels today. Some of them are genre channels, some of them are single IP channels. So the full list is Doctor Who as a single IP channel, Top Gear. Then on the genre side, you've got BBC Drama, BBC Travel, BBC Food, BBC History. We've recently expanded Top Gear across all of the markets and adding new markets as well. So we've added Nordic, Middle East, Benelux, Germany, France, Italy with a Top Gear channel. Top Gear, just to highlight, very strong performer for us. It's usually in the top 10 of all channels on the FAST platform, which, to provide context, many or most of the FAST platforms today have 100 or more channels. So Top Gear is performing in the top 10 out of 100 or more. So a really strong performer in the FAST space. So we'll look to do more single IP channels and more genre channels. And it's also worth pointing out that as FAST gets talked about and maybe gets considered as just the pure plays or the connected TVs, the Samsungs and the Plutos, what we see is that the whole market is evolving. So whether that's affiliates, broadcast partners, local OTT, global fast providers, connected TV, all of those are potential platforms to distribute fast channels on going forward. So that's why we're looking at this space with more interest, and we'll continue to evolve and adapt in that space moving forward.
Great. I've got a bunch of questions on this, and probably start with distribution, as you were just talking about that. So do you think you'll are you at the stage where you want to seek the widest distribution possible, or do you think you're still in a sort of analysis phase to work out the strategy going forwards?
For fast, the approach so far has been to put fast channels onto the platforms with the biggest reach and the biggest presence in the biggest markets. That space will continue to evolve, so there'll be other players in that space. So we'll add distribution in a market where we already have presence. But what I was talking about was the affiliates and broadcast partners and local OTTs. There'll be other platforms where it makes sense to distribute those channels. So if you've created a fast channel whose business model is ad-supported monetization, then that model is best maximized with more distribution. So we'll try to maximize distribution for those fast channels as much as we can.
Right, yeah. And I mean, we've seen some sort of pay TV operators taking fast channel bouquets, which kind of makes perfect sense, really. It's for them, it's a revenue share. For the subscribers to their platforms, it's a additional value, and to the fast channel, it's a significant increased distribution. So that's, I guess, that's one of the areas that you're talking about looking at.
Yeah, it's maximizing those players that are fast players today, and then if there are new opportunities, whether it's affiliate pay TV platforms, whether it's broadcasters, hybrid VOD services, there's a number of other platforms that are looking to add content to their offering, and fast channels represents content that will engage audiences that will benefit their platform. So we look to the market as evolving from just what might be narrowly thought of as fast players today. There'll be other entrants coming in as we move forward.
Right. I've heard a lot of the fast channels. One of the biggest complaints is the access to good data. Have you found that a problem? Have you found any solution to that? Any sort of innovative ways around that?
The data coming from fasts is coming from the platforms in the relationships that we've set up. So there is a reliance on the fast partners in terms of data being shared. It differs by platform, but we've found in our relationships with those partners that we're able to sit down and discuss the business performance overall. Of course, we're always looking for more data to inform programming decisions and performance. So again, that's probably a space that hopefully will evolve over time as well.
And with your wealth of knowledge and experience on the traditional linear pay TV side, what differences do you see between those channels, scheduling those channels and scheduling a fast channel? Are there lessons you're learning along the way with fast?
Yeah, I mean, there are similarities in terms of a linear channel in the pay TV space and then a fast channel, but there are many differences too. From a scheduling point of view, clearly, if you've got a channel like Top Gear, that's a single IP channel, then the volume that you need to create an entire channel is substantially less than a full pay TV linear channel. So some of our single IP channels may be built on 100 or 150 episodes, and that's fine. That's still a high volume, and we get great engagement and audience figures from channels like that, as referenced on the Top Gear example being in the top 10. So there are differences, but the nature of fast is different in that you have single IP channels, and even on these genre-based channels, you may only be looking to low few hundred episodes for an entire channel, which is then different to the broadcast pay TV equivalents. In terms of monetization, there's a difference there with fast channels and pay TV, and also the support and engagement you need to drive either directly or through the partners. Again, because the business model is ad supported, you need a constant focus and driving attention to the fast channels. So it's a little bit more active and proactive in the fast space to drive maximum performance compared to pay TV.
So when you provide a fast channel, when you license a fast channel to a platform, do you also provide AVOD with that, or is it purely fast?
No, it's not purely fast, and many of the platforms do indeed want AVOD, an element of AVOD to sit alongside the fast channel. Some of the platforms have their own owned and operated channels as well, so they look to license content directly into their owned and operated channels. So in effect, you have three different types of relationship with some of the fast platforms: BBC branded fast, platform branded fast, and then AVOD sitting in the middle. And we license on that basis, hitting those three different categories.
To sort of finish up with fast and you're fast. Where do you think the market's going to go? Because I mean, obviously it's developing very quickly. The bigger brands like yourself were perhaps not the very earliest movers in the market, but are now taking a sort of substantial stake in the fast market and probably easing out some of the less common, more niche brands. And I'm kind of interested in whether you think the single IP, single genre channels will remain, or whether over time what's going to happen is this just morphs into a sort of new free TV distribution model. By that I mean the channels become more like the sort of traditional free TV channels of today rather than so focused.
The things that we're looking at and how we see it evolving, and why we're in the space and why we're optimistic. BBC Studios has many thousands, even tens of thousands of hours of content that we can look to create appealing fast channels. What's happening at a market level is, now that it's been several years in EMEA, then the fast platforms looking for quality over quantity. So there was a real rush to build, the 100+ channels. What we're hearing now from the fast platforms is they want to focus on quality. A couple of things driving that will be better engagement, attracting more money, add revenue into the market, and then as that proves itself, then there'll be a greater incentive to provide more quality into that space. To your speculation on the sort of free TV and whether we end up just replicating that model, I don't see that happening in the near or medium term, just because I think the fast ecosystem is still very early stage. And what has been seen to work very well is that very tailored, very specific, very targeted channel offering, which is driving high levels of consumption. So for the time being, we see that as being a unique feature of fast. Of course, if the market shifts in the years to come, then we can shift our strategy. But at the moment, we're seeing single IPs as having a good place in that space for some while yet.
Okay, so moving on, maybe to look at a sort of branded services versus content licensing, content sales. You obviously in your role have to, I think, as you stated at the beginning, you need to drive the highest revenues possible from the content. We were just talking about fast there. Will you license to third-party fast channels? How do you make the decision on whether you run it on your own channels? When do you window it in your fast channels? I guess it's a whole windowing question. How do you look at that?
It is. It's exactly that. It's a content windowing evaluation. We operate as many channel providers and distributors operate. We take a market-wide strategic view, look at each market dynamics, evaluate the optimal route to market for content windowing and value yields. We have different, as I said at the start, we have different markets. Some are channel-led markets, and some are content sales or co-pro-led markets. So on the content sales co-pro side, we have some of our EMEA markets that are content sales co-pro, which examples of those would be France and Germany, biggest markets in Europe, where we have co-pro and pre-sale partnerships in place. So recent example with some of our latest content in Germany with ZDF being a co-producer for one of our upcoming titles, The Famous Five, and that title also being pre-sold to TF1 in France. Across EMEA, it's clear which ones are channel-led markets, which ones are content sales. As for fast, the way in which we've entered fast is to license library, non-exclusive content, or do the single IP. There's quite a bit of space for us because in our channel-led markets, we have first window content on channels. In our content sales-led markets, we'll have first window content with broadcast partners. But the fast licensing so far has been in that, whether it's second, third, or library window, we've focused on fast being in a different window to our more established businesses. So that's how we've separated playing in the fast space versus channel business versus content sales business.
And do you differentiate from a windowing perspective your fast channels versus third-party fast channel licensing? So I guess would you window your stuff before a third party, or is it all non-exclusive and so it's up for grabs if someone comes along with the right proposal for you?
So far in EMEA, where we have fast relationships, they're done only where we have our own fast channels on platform. So we've taken the view that having our fast channel on the fast platforms is the primary route to market. If that same fast platform wants to license some of that content into their own channels to give a further viewing opportunity, then that's what we've supported. So far, we haven't done standalone licensing into fast platforms for owned and operated channels. We've done it in conjunction with a distribution deal for fast channels where we've licensed into fast platform directly as well.
Okay, so I mean, again, we've talked a lot about fast, and overall for BBC Studios, how important do you think it is? I personally feel it takes up a disproportionate amount of time compared to the revenue opportunity at the moment. However, it's it's really important because it is a new area. There's a lot of focus on it, and there's a lot of potential there. So I guess that justifies the time being spent on it. But overall for BBC Studios, how does it rank alongside licensing to global streamers, for example?
As you may expect, with a new and nascent market, it is not our primary or even secondary business. It's a growing business with still some way to go. Obviously, everyone talks about fast in the aggregate, but that is taking into account the US market, which is much more significant and has been for many years. And there's reasons as to why that fast market has grown so substantially in the US. In EMEA, it's a slightly slower start given the availability of free TV and broadcast TV, that being different to the US. Where it can go, there's lots of predictions out there. I think it's got still some years to prove itself in terms of how material it can be for EMEA. But we are keen to be in that space in the event that it does grow to become much more significant. It's growing year over year to date, but given that it started from a zero base or a low base, then it's still got some way to go to even begin to have any chance of catching up established businesses like channel businesses or content sales businesses.
So, BBC Studios itself, you've announced a pretty aggressive growth plan. What do you think will be the main pillars to deliver that over the coming years in your area?
So yes, we have a growth plan for BBC Studios. Underpinning that is a lot of ambition and being diversified in our approach. If you look at our entire business, we've got channels, content sales, consumer products and licensing, online business, global news business, branded events and experience. So a full array of opportunities to grow our revenues going forward. Specifically, areas that we will deliver growth in is in digital products, notably news, on a global and local partner basis. BBC Player, we've touched on. That's a natural extension of our channel business, but presents lots of opportunities to go beyond just TV. BBC Kids, a product that we've launched. It's an on-demand product, naturally targeted at children. That opens up partnerships with mobile and telco platforms. We already have examples of that around the world. We've touched on fast. Again, that is something that we think could be more significant in the future. Maybe just worth just looking at the news side. We haven't sort of touched on that. That is a very significant area for BBC. BBC News is a major asset in the portfolio, globally recognised, one of the most widely read English language news sites in the world. And in recent times, the distribution and product remits are transferred across from public service into BBC Studios. So that presents a number of opportunities for BBC News in how we drive greater value, both with our owned and operated products and through third parties directly. Just to give you an example of that, at the moment we have a public beta of the new revamped bbc.com, just launched a few weeks ago in North America. Significant technology investment that will unlock many future opportunities. The official launch there is in North America in the weeks ahead, and then the rest of the world in early 2024. So that launch and reposition and revamp is really the start of a much bigger digital journey for BBC News globally. And then Player, if I can just talk about that for a second, in the last 18 months we've evolved our business in EMEA to offer Player. We've launched Player, which is an on-demand video product in Poland in 2022, in Nordic in 23, and we'll add more markets in 2024. That allows us to go into the pay TV space with an enhanced offering, enables that future-facing transition from linear to non-linear, and it opens up more opportunities with mobile and broadband partners. So,
and with Player, is that D2C or a combination? What's the strategy of Player?
at the moment, we're seeing that as a partner product primarily, not direct to consumer. We see a lot of opportunity in the sort of bundling and partnership approach. Direct to consumer, as we've seen in recent years, has its challenges, and that is something that we're not focused on for now for BBC Player. We're focused on the partnership side, and having launched it in Nordics and found agreement with every affiliate in the market, we take confidence that we can replicate that in other markets and then go beyond into the mobile and broadband space as well.
So we've talked about the news, the revamped BBC News. We've talked about the Player. We've talked about traditional linear pay TV and fast and content licensing. If you were to rank those in order of importance in your area, what order do you think you'd put them in?
Our current business is primarily pay TV channel business and content sales and co-pro. That's our established business for a number of years, and the outlook for the next few years seems to follow that they will be the primary parts of our business. What we're doing with services like Player and Fast is building new growing businesses to add to our existing businesses. So as we were talking about a second ago about Fast, Fast is smaller in comparison to our pay TV and content sales business. So a number of years down the line, how significant will Fast be? How significant will Player be? How significant will our news proposition be? Remains to be seen. But the clear thing is, with each of those new services, they have growth potential. And so that's what we're trying to do, is build growth businesses with different products and services to, in the aggregate, grow the overall business. So it's hard to sort of say, the ranking of them other than what we see today. And going forward, maybe that changes in the long term. But right now, these are additive, but additive around some fairly substantial businesses that we've operated for a number of years.
Earlier, you sort of touched on the challenges of D2C. Maybe outside of the BBC, let's just talk for a short moment about the global streamers. What's your view on them? Are there too many of them? Are we going to have to see casualties, consolidation? What do you think is going to happen? And I guess that feeds into a sort of a bigger question of what's the future of pay TV as a pay TV consumer. What do you think that's going to look like for me in 5-10 years' time?
I think on the streamer question, it seems to be speculated on an almost daily basis now in terms of what the next step or the end game might be for the global streamers. I think if you separate them into the Netflix, Amazon, and Apple, they are in a different position than, say, the US studios. So Warner Brothers Discovery is Paramount. So what happens on the US studio side? Very hard to predict. Lots of people are predicting what might happen. Our relationship with streamers generally is that we have a producer and distributor relationship with all the major streamers. So at a producer level, we're commissioned by Apple, by Amazon, by Disney Plus, We'll continue to do that. We also broker co-production businesses with those platforms, examples being on HBO and Disney and Amazon. And then we sell to those platforms as well through our distribution relationship. Example there, selling Am I Being Unreasonable to Hulu. So all of that on the streamer side, we're happy to engage and see many partners in that space. And we'll continue to engage with them on the content production, content investment, content licensing side. What the ultimate impact is on pay TV, again, hard to say. However, it's probably worth just looking at pay TV in the context of other market sizes. If you look at pay TV globally, various estimates put that at $170, $180 billion, which compares to TV advertising, very similar figure. Online video ads, again, similar figure. Subscription OTT is slightly less, $110, $115 billion. But then at a service level or connectivity level, the interesting bit is the broadband size of market approaching $300 billion and the mobile market approaching $800-900 billion. So the question on pay TV is interesting. Pay TV is clearly still very significant as its own market. Pay TV has innovated at a proposition level and has evolved to become triple play and quad play in many markets. So overall, pay TV in and of itself is still very substantial. But then when taken in aggregate with broadband and mobile, looks to be very well positioned. So for our relationships with pay TV, we'll continue to provide channels, content, new innovative products into that space, but then also look to expand across, again, the broadband and mobile sector as well.
Well, thanks very much for your time, Arran. It's been really interesting hearing your views on BBC Studios. With just one final question for you. For your part of BBC Studios, where would you like to see that in 12 months' time?
We've talked today about lots of ambitions for launching new products. So naturally, want to launch more fast channels with more partners in more markets across the next 12 months. We have a very busy 2024 already planned, so we can see that as very likely to happen. We've talked about BBC Player. Again, we have a roadmap of launches in 2024. So again, we'll have more BBC players in the market. And then our channels business, again, trying to maximize the performance of our channel business and see gains in that space as well to continue the strength of our linear channel business, which helps us continue to support and invest in our other businesses as well.
Great, good. Well, look, maybe let's get you back on in 12 months' time.
Yeah, we'd love to.
And see how it's all going.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Arran, and take care, and we'll catch up soon.
Pleasure. Thanks now.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Inside Content, the TV industry podcast brought to you by 3Vision. With decades of TV industry experience and real-world success, we know the ins and outs of the market like nobody else. To learn more about our TV consultancy services, head to 3vision.tv.